I walked into my childhood home that Saturday afternoon, expecting to discuss flower arrangements and catering details for my wedding next month. Instead, my father looked me straight in the eye and delivered the words that shattered my world. "We used your fund for your sister," he said with a pride that made my stomach drop. "She needs the spotlight more than you do." $25,000 of my savings gone. Years of double shifts at the auto shop vanished. My fiancée Sarah squeezed my hand as the reality hit me like a sledgehammer. "Their 57 hours start now," she said calmly, her lawyer instincts already calculating our next move. The drive to my parents' house that morning had been filled with excitement. Sarah and I spent the entire trip discussing final wedding preparations, laughing about seating arrangements and debating whether to serve chicken or beef for the main course. I remember feeling grateful for everything coming together so perfectly after months of careful planning. My name is Edgar, and at 28 years old, I thought I had my life figured out. Sarah and I met 3 years ago when she brought her car to the repair shop I co-own with my best friend Marcus. What started as a simple brake job turned into coffee dates, weekend adventures, and eventually the deepest love I had ever experienced. Sarah grew up bouncing between foster homes across Colorado, never knowing the stability of a permanent family. When she earned a full scholarship to law school and later landed a position at Morrison & Associates, one of Denver's most respected family law firms, she worked twice as hard as anyone else to prove she belonged. Her determination and compassion drew me to her immediately. I had been saving for our wedding since my sophomore year of college, working extra shifts at Patterson's Auto Repair every weekend and holiday. The shop specializes in classic car restoration, and my expertise with vintage engines had built a loyal customer base throughout the Denver suburbs. When Marcus and I bought the business from old Mr. Patterson 2 years ago, I finally felt secure enough to propose to Sarah. My parents, Patricia and Robert Wilson, own Wilson Realty, a successful real estate business that has operated in our suburban Denver neighborhood for over 15 years. They built their reputation on luxury home sales and commercial property development, always emphasizing appearance and social connections as keys to success. My sister, Amanda, 26, graduated from the University of Colorado with a degree in marketing, but never seemed interested in building a career. She preferred attending charity galas and social events, always networking with the right people and dating men from prominent families. Our parents supported her lifestyle, viewing her social connections as investments in the family's future prosperity. Growing up, I never resented the attention Amanda received. She struggled academically due to a learning disability diagnosed in elementary school, and I understood why our parents provided extra tutoring, private lessons, and constant encouragement. I worked part-time jobs throughout high school to pay for my own car clothes and college expenses, proud to be self-sufficient, while Amanda received the support she needed. But sitting in my parents' living room that Saturday afternoon, watching my father's chest puff with pride as he explained how they had redirected my wedding fund to Amanda's celebration, I felt the ground disappear beneath me. The $25,000 I had entrusted to them 6 months ago for safekeeping was completely gone. My mother, Patricia, sat perched on the edge of her designer couch, her manicured hands folded tightly in her lap. She avoided eye contact as Robert continued his explanation with the enthusiasm of someone announcing a promotion rather than a betrayal. Amanda's fiancé comes from one of the most influential families in Colorado Springs, my father continued. Bradley's parents own multiple businesses and have connections throughout the state. This wedding represents an opportunity for our entire family to establish relationships that could transform our lives. I felt Sarah's grip tighten on my hand as she listened intently to every word. Her legal training had taught her to gather information before reacting. But I could sense the anger building beneath her calm exterior. The venue alone cost $18,000. My mother finally spoke her voice barely above a whisper. The country club requires payment in full 6 months before the event. Amanda needed that security, Edgar. You and Sarah can have a beautiful ceremony at the local park or community center. Sarah's phone buzzed quietly as she received a text message. She glanced at the screen briefly before returning her full attention to my parents' explanation. Your sister deserves this spotlight, my father repeated. She's worked so hard to build relationships with the right people. Bradley's family could open doors for all of us. Surely you can understand the bigger picture here. I stared at my parents in disbelief, searching their faces for any sign of guilt or regret. Instead, I found only excitement about Amanda's social advancement and irritation that I was not immediately supportive of their decision. That's when I realized this betrayal had been months in the planning. They never intended to honor their commitment to fund my wedding. They had been systematically lying to me for half a year, while secretly arranging to redirect my money toward their own ambitions through Amanda's marriage. The room fell silent, except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Sarah stood slowly, her professional composure intact, despite the emotional storm I knew was raging inside her. 57 hours, she repeated quietly, checking her watch. That's exactly how long you have to make this right before I take action that will change everything for your family forever. I want to see every receipt and invoice. I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt inside. If you spent my money on Amanda's wedding, I need to understand exactly where every dollar went. My father reluctantly retrieved a manila folder from his desk drawer, spreading the documents across the coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. The papers revealed an elaborate celebration that far exceeded anything Sarah and I had ever planned for ourselves. $18,000 for the venue at Broadmoor Country Club. $4,000 for designer invitations with hand calligraphy addressing. $3,000 for a photographer whose portfolio featured celebrity weddings. The numbers climbed higher with each invoice I examined. My hands shook as I calculated the total expenditures. They had committed to spending over $60,000 on Amanda's wedding, using my $25,000 as just the foundation for their grandiose plans. The front door opened, and Amanda walked in with her fiancé Bradley trailing behind her. Amanda looked radiant in her designer workout clothes, fresh from a Pilates class at her exclusive gym. Bradley wore a tailored golf outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Edgar, there you are, Amanda said brightly, as if nothing unusual was happening. I wanted to tell you about the flowers we selected for the ceremony. White orchids flown in from Hawaii, absolutely stunning. Bradley extended his hand toward me with a condescending smile. Good to see you again, Ed. Still working on cars, I assume? Such honest work. Very admirable for someone with your background. His tone dripped with the kind of superiority that comes from never having to worry about money or work for anything meaningful. I noticed his soft hands and perfect manicure, evidence of a life spent managing trust funds rather than creating value through actual labor. Sarah studied Bradley carefully, her attorney instincts analyzing every word and gesture. She had dealt with his type countless times in her family law practice, privileged individuals who viewed relationships as business transactions rather than emotional bonds. Amanda, you realize this wedding is being funded with Edgar's money, Sarah said calmly. The money he saved for 3 years working double shifts to pay for our celebration. Amanda's expression shifted from cheerful to defensive. Edgar makes good money at that auto shop. He can afford to help family when we need it. Besides, my wedding needs to make the right impression. Bradley's parents expect a certain level of sophistication. Bradley nodded approvingly. Exactly right, darling. Image matters in our social circle. A simple ceremony might send the wrong message about our family's status and values. I felt my anger building as I listened to their casual dismissal of my sacrifice. These people were treating my years of hard work as if it were pocket change they could redistribute based on their social climbing ambitions. Sarah excused herself quietly and walked toward the kitchen, her phone already in her hand. I could hear her making several calls, speaking in the professional tone she used when handling difficult legal situations. While Sarah worked, my parents continued explaining their rationale. They genuinely believed that Amanda's marriage to Bradley would solve their financial problems and elevate the entire family's social standing. They had convinced themselves that my wedding could be postponed or simplified without significant consequences. When Sarah returned 20 minutes later, her demeanor had shifted into full attorney mode. She carried a small folder of documents she had printed using my parents' home office equipment. I need to inform you that, as a licensed attorney specializing in family law and financial disputes, I have been documenting this entire conversation, she announced calmly. What you have described constitutes theft by conversion of designated funds, which is a criminal offense in the state of Colorado. My parents' faces went pale as Sarah continued her explanation. Edgar entrusted you with $25,000 for a specific purpose with clear documentation of that purpose. Using those funds for any other purpose without his written consent constitutes theft, regardless of family relationships or good intentions. She placed several legal documents on the coffee table next to the wedding invoices. These are formal notices of intent to file complaints with the District Attorney's Office, the State Real Estate Licensing Board, and the Colorado Bar Association's Ethics Committee regarding potential fraud and misappropriation of funds. The room fell completely silent. Bradley's superior expression disappeared as he realized the serious legal implications of the situation. The 57-hour timeline represents exactly the amount of time you have before I submit these complaints and begin formal legal proceedings. If Edgar's wedding fund is not fully restored within that time frame, the consequences will extend far beyond simple family disagreements. My father's face had turned ashen. Patricia began crying softly, finally understanding that their decision had legal ramifications they had never considered. Sarah gathered her documents and took my hand. We're leaving now to give you time to consider your options. Remember, 57 hours from this moment, everything changes permanently. As we walked toward the door, Amanda called out desperately, "Edgar, wait. We can work this out. Family should stick together." I turned back to look at my sister and parents one final time before leaving. Family should stick together, I agreed. That's exactly why what you did hurt so much. The drive to Marcus's house passed in tense silence. Sarah's hands gripped the steering wheel as she navigated the familiar suburban streets, her legal mind clearly processing everything that had transpired at my parents' home. Marcus Rivera had been my best friend since high school, and when we bought Patterson's auto repair together, he became the brother I chose, rather than the family I was born into. His wife Jennifer and their twin daughters Emma and Sophie treated me like an uncle, always including me in their family celebrations and weekend barbecues. When we arrived at their modest two-story home, Marcus was working in his garage on a vintage Mustang restoration project. He looked up from under the hood as we approached, immediately sensing something was wrong. "What happened, Edgar? You both look like you've seen a ghost." I explained the situation while Jennifer emerged from the house with the twins who were covered in finger paint from their afternoon art project. The innocence of their laughter contrasted sharply with the heaviness of our family crisis. Jennifer's expression darkened as she learned about my parents' betrayal. As a professional wedding planner, she understood exactly how devastating this financial blow would be to our celebration plans. Edgar. "I need to tell you something," Marcus said, wiping his hands on a shop rag. "Your father came to see me 3 weeks ago. He wanted me to convince you to postpone your wedding for a year." My stomach dropped as Marcus continued his revelation. "Robert claimed you weren't mature enough for marriage and should focus on expanding the business instead. He suggested Sarah might be pushing you toward commitment before you were ready." I told him he was completely wrong and refused to get involved in his manipulation. Jennifer nodded sadly. "Your mother called me 2 months ago asking about budget wedding options. She said you wanted something modest and practical, which contradicted everything you had told me about your dream celebration with Sarah." The pattern of deception became clear as Marcus and Jennifer shared their experiences. My parents had been systematically undermining our wedding plans for months, not just redirecting funds, but actively sabotaging our preparations. Sarah's phone buzzed with several text messages. She read them quickly before looking up with a grim expression. "I contacted David Chen, a forensic accountant who works with our firm on financial fraud cases. He can expedite an investigation into your parents' business finances if we need that information for legal proceedings." The weight of Sarah's legal expertise became apparent as she outlined the potential consequences my parents faced. What had started as a family betrayal could escalate into criminal charges and professional ruin if they refused to make things right. But I also saw the pain in Sarah's eyes as she discussed legal action against my family. Her childhood in foster care had taught her to value family bonds, even imperfect ones, because she understood how rare and precious they could be. Jennifer offered to help us plan an alternative wedding celebration within our reduced budget. Several vendor friends owed her favors, and she was confident we could create a beautiful ceremony for less than $5,000. As we discussed backup plans, Sarah's phone rang. She answered professionally, identifying herself by her full legal name and firm affiliation. The conversation was brief but intense. That was David. "His preliminary investigation into your parents' real estate business has revealed some concerning information. He recommends we meet tomorrow morning to discuss what he's discovered." The scope of my family's problems was expanding beyond a simple wedding fund dispute. Sarah's legal resources were uncovering deeper issues that could affect everyone involved. Marcus offered his guest bedroom for the night, understanding that I needed distance from my parents while processing everything that had happened. His family welcomed us warmly, and over dinner with the twins I remembered what healthy family relationships looked like. After the girls went to bed, the 4 of us sat on the back patio discussing the situation under the Colorado evening sky. Jennifer brought out coffee and homemade cookies, creating a sense of normalcy despite the chaos surrounding us. "Your parents are scared," Edgar. Jennifer observed gently. "People don't make decisions this extreme unless they're desperate about something else entirely." Marcus agreed. "Robert has been acting strange lately. He seems stressed about business, always checking his phone and making excuses to leave social gatherings early." Sarah listened carefully to their observations, her attorney instincts gathering information that might explain my parents' irrational behavior. "Fear often drives people to make choices that destroy the relationships they value most," she said quietly. "Your parents may believe they're saving the family when they're actually tearing it apart. As I lay in Marcus's guest room that night, staring at the ceiling and listening to Sarah's gentle breathing beside me, I realized that my wedding fund was just the visible symptom of much larger problems. My family was in crisis, and the 57-hour deadline was forcing everyone to confront truths that had been hidden for months or possibly years. Tomorrow would bring new revelations about the depth of my parents' struggles, and I would have to decide whether to pursue justice or mercy as Sarah's legal machinery moved closer to formal action. 24 hours into our 57-hour ultimatum, Sarah and I met David Chen at a quiet coffee shop downtown. David was a soft-spoken man in his 40s who specialized in forensic accounting for family law cases, with particular expertise in tracking misappropriated funds and hidden assets. Edgar Wine, need to share some difficult information about your parents' financial situation. David began spreading several folders across our corner table. Your wedding fund was used to prevent immediate bankruptcy of their real estate business, not just to pay for Amanda's wedding expenses. The documents revealed a pattern of declining revenue and mounting debts that stretched back over 18 months. Wilson Realty had been hemorrhaging money due to poor investment decisions and a downturn in the luxury real estate market. Your father borrowed heavily against commercial properties that lost value when several major employers left the Denver area, David explained. He's been using new client deposits to pay existing debts, which is a dangerous cycle that typically leads to complete financial collapse. Sarah studied the financial statements with her trained legal eye. This explains why they were so desperate to fund Amanda's wedding. They genuinely believed Bradley's family connections would provide business opportunities to solve their crisis. But David's investigation had uncovered an even more troubling reality. Through his professional network, he had learned that Bradley's parents viewed his engagement to Amanda as temporary entertainment, rather than serious commitment. Bradley's family has no intention of doing business with your parents, David continued. In fact, they're encouraging Bradley to end the engagement after graduation from his MBA program next year. They see Amanda as unsuitable for their social circle long term. My parents had sacrificed my wedding fund and damaged our family relationships based on a completely false premise. Their desperation had clouded their judgment to the point where they couldn't recognize that their salvation strategy had no basis in reality. I called my grandfather Thomas from the coffee shop parking lot, needing advice from someone who understood my father's character and motivations. Thomas Wilson, 82 years old and sharp as ever, lived in a retirement community in Phoenix, but stayed connected to family events through weekly phone calls. Edgar. I've been worried about your father for months, Thomas admitted after I explained the situation. He's been asking unusual questions about borrowing against my life insurance policy and liquidating investments. I suspected he was in financial trouble but hoped he would ask for help directly. Thomas revealed that Robert had always struggled with feelings of inadequacy and comparison to others. Growing up, he watched his older brother Michael build a successful medical practice while feeling pressure to achieve similar status through real estate success. Your father made the mistake of trying to live beyond his means to impress people who don't actually matter, Thomas said sadly. He confused appearance with reality, and now he's trapped in a cycle of debt and deception. Thomas offered to fly to Denver immediately to help mediate the family crisis. His wisdom and perspective could provide the emotional bridge between legal consequences and family healing that we desperately needed. Meanwhile, Sarah received updates from David's continued investigation. The forensic accounting revealed that Robert owed over $120,000 in combined business debts Missed mortgage payments and credit card balances accumulated while maintaining the illusion of prosperity. Your parents are facing foreclosure on their home within 90 days, unless they generate significant income, David reported. Their desperation to fund Amanda's wedding stems from a misguided belief that her marriage will provide financial salvation. The scope of my family's deception became clear as we gathered more information. They had been living a carefully constructed lie for over a year, borrowing money and manipulating funds to avoid admitting their business failure to anyone, including each other. Sarah's legal strategy began taking shape as we understood the full complexity of the situation. Rather than simple theft of my wedding fund, we were dealing with systematic financial fraud that could result in criminal charges and complete professional ruin for my father. But Sarah also recognized that destroying my parents wouldn't restore my wedding fund or heal our family relationships. She began developing alternative approaches that could serve justice while preserving opportunities for redemption and repair. As we drove home from our meeting with David, Sarah shared her strategic thinking about the remaining 33 hours of our ultimatum. Your parents need to understand the serious consequences of their actions, but they also need a path forward that allows them to maintain their dignity while making things right. Pure punishment won't solve anyone's problems here. Her compassion impressed me, even as I struggled with anger toward my parents. Sarah had every right to demand full legal prosecution, but she was looking for solutions that could heal rather than destroy our family. The evening news that night featured a story about real estate fraud in the Denver area, with several agents losing their licenses due to mishandling of client funds. The timing felt ominous, as we realized how close my father was to similar consequences. With one day remaining in our deadline, the pressure was building toward a confrontation that would determine not just my wedding plans, but the future of everyone in our family. At 8 o'clock the next morning, exactly 33 hours into our ultimatum, my mother called in tears, begging for a family meeting. Her voice shook as she admitted that the stress was affecting her health, and that she hadn't slept since our confrontation. "Edgar, please come home so we can talk this through like a family," she pleaded. "Your father made some poor decisions, but we can work together to find a solution that helps everyone." An hour later, my father appeared at Patterson's Auto Repair during our busiest morning rush. He pushed through the waiting area filled with customers and demanded to speak with me privately, his face red with embarrassment and desperation. "Son, you're destroying our family over money that can be replaced," Robert said, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Sarah's threats are going to ruin everything we've built together. Is this really how you want to handle a simple misunderstanding?" Several longtime customers witnessed the uncomfortable scene, including Mrs. Henderson, an elderly widow who had been bringing her late husband's Cadillac to our shop for 15 years. Her shocked expression reflected the community's growing awareness of our family conflict. Marcus stepped forward to defuse the situation, guiding my father toward the office while I continued working on a transmission repair. But the damage was done as word spread through our small suburban community about the Wilson family's financial and legal troubles. By lunchtime, 3 different neighbors had called to check on my well-being, having heard various versions of the story from people who witnessed my father's emotional breakdown at the shop. Around 2 o'clock, Amanda arrived in tears, her usual composed appearance replaced by genuine distress and confusion. She had been crying heavily, her makeup smeared, and her designer clothes wrinkled from emotional exhaustion. "Edgar, I need to tell you something about Bradley," she began, her voice barely audible above the shop's ambient noise. "His parents want me to sign a prenuptial agreement that leaves me with nothing if our marriage ends for any reason. She revealed that Bradley's family attorney had presented documents that would essentially make her a temporary wife with no financial security or legal protections. The agreement included clauses that would void the contract if she gained weight, failed to maintain their social standards, or produced children they deemed unsuitable. I finally understand that Bradley doesn't see our relationship as permanent, Amanda admitted through fresh tears. His parents have been planning for him to marry someone else after he finishes graduate school. I'm just entertainment until he's ready for his real life. The revelation that Amanda's engagement was built on false premises explained our parents' increasingly desperate behavior. They had sacrificed everything for a marriage alliance that was never intended to provide the security and opportunities they desperately needed. Sarah arrived at the shop after receiving my urgent phone call about Amanda's situation. She listened compassionately as my sister described the humiliating details of Bradley's family's expectations and demands. Amanda, you have legal rights in this situation, Sarah explained gently. Engagements involving financial fraud or misrepresentation can be prosecuted under Colorado law. Bradley's family may be guilty of serious deception regarding their intentions, but Amanda surprised us both by making a decision that showed more integrity than I had seen from her in years. I'm ending the engagement immediately and returning every deposit I can recover from the wedding vendors, she announced with newfound strength. I choose our family over social status and fake relationships. Her courage impressed me, but it also created new complications since many wedding deposits were non-refundable, according to the contracts our parents had signed using my money. As the afternoon progressed, David Chen provided updates on his continued investigation into our parents' finances. The forensic accounting had revealed evidence that Robert used my wedding fund to pay overdue business debts rather than exclusively funding Amanda's celebration. Your father's real estate license is in jeopardy due to mishandling of client escrow accounts, David reported. The state licensing board has the authority to revoke his professional credentials permanently if they discover the extent of his financial violations. Sarah updated me on the legal timeline we were facing. With 12 hours remaining in our 57-hour ultimatum, she needed my decision about pursuing full prosecution or accepting an alternative resolution that would protect my family from complete destruction. The choice felt impossible. My parents had betrayed my trust and stolen my wedding fund based on lies and desperation. But destroying their lives wouldn't restore what I had lost or heal the relationships that mattered to me. Marcus offered his perspective during our closing routine that evening. Your family made terrible choices, Edgar, but they're still your family. The question is whether you want justice or revenge, because those are two very different things. As we drove home from the shop, Sarah shared her own thoughts about the decision I faced. I've seen what happens when families destroy each other through legal warfare, she said quietly. Sometimes the victory costs more than the original loss, especially when the damage affects innocent people like your grandfather and the community that respects you. That evening, with less than 10 hours remaining in our deadline, I struggled to balance my desire for justice with my love for family members who had made devastating mistakes under extreme pressure. The final confrontation was approaching, and everyone's future depended on decisions that would be made in the next few hours. At 6 o'clock that evening, with 9 hours remaining in our 57-hour deadline, my grandfather Thomas arrived from Phoenix accompanied by my Aunt Susan and Uncle Michael. Thomas had convinced the entire extended family to converge for an emergency meeting at the community center, where Sarah and I had originally planned our wedding reception. The irony wasn't lost on anyone as we gathered in the same venue where we should have been celebrating love and commitment, now forced to confront betrayal and financial deception instead. Thomas, despite his 82 years, commanded immediate respect as he took charge of the family meeting. His presence brought a gravity to the situation that made everyone understand the seriousness of what we were facing together. Patricia Robert. I've reviewed the financial documents David provided. Thomas began with quiet authority. Your real estate business owes over $120,000 in debts that you've been hiding from your children and siblings for over a year. Aunt Susan, Patricia's older sister and a retired bank manager, had spent the afternoon reviewing our family's complete financial picture. Her expertise in banking and lending provided crucial perspective on the scope of the crisis. The mortgage on your home is 3 months behind, and foreclosure proceedings will begin within 30 days, unless you make significant payments immediately, Susan reported. Your credit rating has been destroyed, and no traditional lender will provide additional financing. Uncle Michael, a family physician who had always been Robert's voice of reason, addressed my father directly. Robert, your pride nearly destroyed your family. Why didn't you ask for help when the business started failing? We're family. We could have found solutions together. David's forensic investigation had uncovered the complete timeline of my father's financial deception. The evidence showed 18 months of gradually escalating lies as Robert borrowed against assets, manipulated escrow accounts, and used client funds to cover operating expenses. But just as Sarah prepared to present her final ultimatum, Bradley arrived unexpectedly from Colorado Springs. Instead of trying to reconcile with Amanda, he carried information that changed everything we thought we understood about the situation. I drove here because Amanda deserves to know the truth about my family's investigation into yours, Bradley announced with surprising directness. My father hired a private investigator to research your financial situation before approving our engagement. The revelation stunned everyone in the room, as Bradley revealed documentation his family had gathered about Robert's business practices and financial violations. Your father has been inflating property values and manipulating real estate transactions for over 2 years to hide his financial problems. Bradley continued handing Sarah a folder of photographs and financial records. My family's investigator documented systematic fraud that goes far beyond simple family financial disputes. Sarah examined the evidence with growing concern, as she realized the legal implications were far more serious than our original theft complaint. The documentation suggested potential criminal fraud that could result in federal prosecution and complete financial ruin for our entire family. But Bradley's motivations weren't entirely altruistic. His family wanted ammunition to prevent any future claims on their wealth or reputation if the Wilson family financial collapse became public knowledge. Thomas stepped forward to address the crisis with wisdom earned through decades of business experience and family challenges. Robert, you have 2 choices now. You can continue lying and face criminal prosecution that will destroy everyone who depends on you. Or you can tell the complete truth and let this family help you rebuild with integrity. The moment of truth had arrived as my father faced the consequences of 2 years of deception and desperation. Patricia sat beside him, finally understanding that her husband's pride had nearly cost them everything, including their children's love and respect. Robert broke down completely, admitting that his business failures had spiraled into systematic fraud, as he tried desperately to maintain appearances and provide for Amanda's wedding celebration. I never meant for any of this to happen, he sobbed. I thought Bradley's family would provide business opportunities that could solve our problems. I convinced myself that using Edgar's money was temporary, that I could replace it before anyone got hurt. Sarah stood to address the family, gathering her legal authority, evident as she outlined the choices we faced in the remaining 4 hours of our ultimatum. Robert's real estate license violations alone carry potential criminal charges and civil penalties that would eliminate any possibility of financial recovery, she explained. However, if the family cooperates in complete restitution and agrees to binding legal supervision, prosecution can be avoided while still ensuring justice for Edgar. The room fell silent as everyone processed the gravity of our situation and the narrow window of opportunity remaining for redemption rather than destruction. Thomas looked directly at me with the love and wisdom of someone who had guided our family through previous crises. Edgar, this decision will define not just your parents' future, but the kind of man you become. Choose carefully because this moment will echo through generations of our family. With 3 hours remaining in our deadline, I faced the most important decision of my life, knowing that justice and mercy had to find a way to coexist if we were going to survive as a family. As the clock approached midnight, marking the end of our 57-hour ultimatum, I stood before my assembled family and made the choice that would define our relationships for generations to come. I choose accountability with compassion over destruction with revenge, I announced, looking directly at my parents. Sarah and I have developed a comprehensive solution that serves justice while preserving opportunities for redemption and healing. Sarah presented the legal framework we had constructed with Thomas's guidance and David's financial expertise. Rather than pursuing criminal prosecution that would destroy my parents' lives and careers, we proposed a binding agreement that would ensure complete restitution while protecting everyone's dignity. Robert and Patricia would sign over ownership of Wilson Realty to me, with Marcus and I managing the business while they worked as supervised employees, earning salaries sufficient to repay my wedding fund through labor rather than facing criminal charges. Your parents will undergo financial counseling and work under legal supervision until every dollar of Edgar's money is restored, Sarah explained. This approach provides justice while allowing them to rebuild their relationship with the family they nearly lost. The solution required my parents to surrender their pride and independence, but it preserved their ability to earn a living while making things right. Uncle Michael agreed to serve as financial supervisor, ensuring that all business income was properly allocated toward debt reduction and restitution. Amanda supported the plan by offering to use her marketing degree to promote our expanded business, finding purpose in supporting our family, rather than pursuing social status through marriage to someone who never valued her as a person. Thomas provided the emotional wisdom that made reconciliation possible, reminding everyone that families survive through forgiveness, combined with accountability rather than punishment designed to destroy relationships. Within 6 months of that midnight confrontation, our family business had transformed into Patterson-Wilson Automotive and Property Services. Combining our mechanical expertise with the real estate properties my father could no longer manage independently. Our first major project involved renovating a historic apartment building that Thomas purchased specifically to give Robert and Patricia meaningful work that utilized their knowledge while rebuilding their reputation through honest labor. The wedding Sarah and I had dreamed of took place on a Saturday afternoon in the rooftop garden of Morrison & Associates, with catering donated by local businesses who respected our integrity throughout the crisis. The celebration cost less than $5,000, but provided everything we wanted for our special day. Jennifer coordinated every detail with her usual perfectionism, creating an intimate ceremony that felt more meaningful than any elaborate country club celebration could have provided. Marcus served as my best man and Amanda as Sarah's maid of honor. symbolizing our family's commitment to healing and growth. Sarah's law firm colleagues provided pro bono legal services to ensure that all aspects of our family's financial restructuring complied with state regulations and ethical requirements. Their support demonstrated the respect Sarah had earned through years of professional excellence and personal integrity. 6 months after our wedding, Sarah and I celebrated our first anniversary in our new home, a renovated Victorian house from Robert's former property portfolio that we purchased at cost using profits from our thriving business. The automotive and property services company had grown beyond anything Marcus and I originally envisioned, with customers throughout the Denver area seeking our unique combination of mechanical expertise and property maintenance services. Robert and Patricia attended financial counseling sessions twice monthly, learning to live within their means while rebuilding trust with family members and business associates. Their transformation from desperate deception to honest accountability inspired everyone who witnessed their commitment to change. Amanda enrolled in graduate school for nonprofit management, having discovered that her people skills were better suited to community service than social climbing. She began dating Trevor, a fellow student, who appreciated her genuine personality and intelligence rather than her social connections. The community center, where we held our family crisis meeting, became a regular venue for Wilson family gatherings, transforming from a place of confrontation to a symbol of healing and renewal. Most importantly, my relationship with Sarah deepened as we navigated the challenges of rebuilding our family while starting our marriage. Her strength during our crisis showed me the kind of partnership that could withstand any challenge life presented. Thomas moved back to Denver to be closer to our growing family, purchasing a small apartment in the building we had renovated for him. His presence provided the wisdom and stability that helped everyone understand the difference between enabling destructive behavior and supporting genuine efforts at redemption. A year later, Robert received a formal commendation from the State Real Estate Board for his cooperation in developing new ethical guidelines that help other agents avoid similar financial difficulties. His willingness to share his mistakes openly contributed to industry improvements that protected countless families from similar betrayals. The most profound lesson I learned through our family's crisis was that true integrity means holding people accountable while providing opportunities for redemption. Destroying relationships through revenge might provide temporary satisfaction, but building stronger connections through forgiveness combined with justice creates lasting positive change. Sarah often reminds me that her childhood in foster care taught her the value of family bonds, even imperfect ones, because she understood how rare and precious genuine connections could be. Our crisis ultimately strengthened those bonds by forcing everyone to confront their weaknesses and commit to growth. Looking back on that devastating Saturday afternoon when my parents announced they had stolen my wedding fund, I realize that their betrayal became the catalyst for discovering strengths I never knew I possessed, and building relationships deeper than I had ever imagined possible. The 57-hour ultimatum that Sarah imposed on my parents represented more than a legal deadline. It became the time frame for our entire family to choose between destruction through pride and restoration through humility. Today, 3 years later, our expanded business employs 8 people and serves customers throughout Colorado. Robert and Patricia have repaid every dollar of my wedding fund, plus interest. But more importantly, they have regained the respect of their children and community through consistent, honest behavior. Amanda married Trevor in a simple ceremony at our family church, choosing love and authenticity over social advancement and financial security. Their relationship demonstrates what marriage looks like when built on mutual respect rather than strategic alliance. Sarah and I recently welcomed our first child, a daughter we named Grace, in honor of the forgiveness that made our family's healing possible. Thomas holds his great-granddaughter with tears of joy, understanding that redemption often comes through the next generation's opportunities to build better relationships. The most powerful realization from our experience is that family betrayal, while devastating, doesn't have to be permanent if everyone commits to genuine change. Our crisis forced difficult conversations that ultimately strengthened our connections and created deeper understanding between people who thought they knew each other completely. Every family faces moments when love and loyalty are tested by circumstances that reveal character and priorities. The choices made during those critical hours determine whether relationships survive and grow stronger or fracture permanently under the pressure. Sarah's legal expertise provided the framework for justice, but her compassion provided the foundation for healing. Her background in foster care taught her that families are precious gifts that should be preserved whenever possible, even when they require difficult work to repair and maintain. I encourage anyone facing similar family crises to remember that accountability and forgiveness can coexist when combined with genuine commitment to change. Sometimes the people who hurt us most deeply are also capable of the greatest transformation when given appropriate consequences paired with opportunities for redemption. Our story demonstrates that financial betrayal within families often stems from deeper issues, including fear, pride, and desperation that require compassion as well as consequences. Understanding the root causes of destructive behavior allows for solutions that address underlying problems rather than simply punishing symptoms. The wedding fund my parents stole represented 3 years of my hard work, but the family relationships we rebuilt through forgiveness and accountability represent a lifetime investment in connections that will sustain future generations. What started as the worst betrayal I could imagine became the foundation for the strongest family bonds we had ever experienced, proving that sometimes our greatest challenges contain the seeds of our most meaningful growth and transformation. Today, I understand that the real treasure wasn't the money my parents took, but the integrity and wisdom we developed together while working to make things right. Those lessons will guide our family for generations to come, creating a legacy far more valuable than any wedding celebration could have provided. Have you ever faced a situation where someone you trusted deeply betrayed that trust? How did you balance the need for justice with the desire to preserve important relationships? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about finding that balance between accountability and forgiveness. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family challenges and building stronger relationships. Share this with someone who might benefit from hearing about how families can heal from even the deepest betrayals. Thank you for listening to our journey, and I wish you all the wisdom and strength to handle whatever challenges your own family relationships may face.